Skill-based matchmaking. It's a topic you've probably heard a great deal about as of late, all of it being negative. But what if I were to tell you that they were all wrong? Peace and Grease here, and today I want to offer you an entirely different perspective on skill-based matchmaking, a perspective that you should have heard by now, but have not. Now, in truth, I really had hoped that a bigger content creator or streamer would have done this video. They would have done a better job, and it would have added more credence to it. Sadly, you're stuck with me. Now, I'm not trying to insinuate that there are content creators or streamers out there that are bad people. On the contrary, but there are a few bad apples. There are some content creators and streamers out there that are straight lying to you about skill-based matchmaking because it has impacted their bottom line, their money, and that is the sole reason they want skill-based matchmaking gone. There are still other content creators or streamers out there that are misleading you about skill-based matchmaking because they want to be able to stage or script their footage by capturing it in open lobbies where it's easier for them and make it look a little bit more spicy by curb stomping low skill or average players for their weapon test or PvP builds. Whatever the case may be, at this point you're probably wondering, who is this video for? This is to represent all of the lowest skill and average players out there. And if you're wondering why, because it hasn't been done. There's been a lot of bias and a lot of content creators or streamers out there living in an echo chamber, just repeating what each other says verbatim. But there hasn't really been anybody speaking out on the low skill or average player's behalf, which coincidentally comprise about 75 to 80% of the player population, with the hardcore players only making up about 19 to 24% and the top 1% rounding that off. If you're wondering what the opinion of the low skill or average players are, we like skill-based matchmaking because the first time for the Destiny 2's existence, it's fair. Now that's something or a word that no other content creator or streamer has used yet because they can't. Now, if you're wondering what I'm on about, I'd like you to take a look at a bit of footage. I captured this in the recent Iron Banner, which coincidentally there is no skill-based matchmaking. For whatever reason, the game was lobbing all players, random players, with about a 1 point something KD together on one team. And unfortunately, we were facing teams that had double to triple our KD. The results are, as you would expect. We got rolled, murked, mobbed, tortured, curb stomped, and mercied. Now, if you're wondering what this has to do with this topic, it's simple. This is the typical experience for a good majority of the low skill and average players out there. We would have to go through something similar to this on a pretty semi-regular basis. Now, I ask you, what do you think the ramifications are for a player that has to continually go through this type of experience? Well, I can tell you, they quit Crucible. Hardcore players, whether they intend it or not, including your content creators and streamers out there, are chasing all of the low skill and average players out of Crucible. Now, this meant that it didn't matter if Shaxx had the best weapon in the game. We didn't play Crucible, so we didn't get it. We didn't do the bounty, so we didn't get the rewards from it. Didn't matter if we had an exotic quest. If it had a Crucible requirement, we didn't do it. Same thing for exotic catalysts. If it had a Crucible requirement, we avoided anything and everything that had to do with Crucible. This was before skill-based matchmaking. Now, with skill-based matchmaking, we are finally returning. And the reason for this is because skill-based matchmaking is grouping players of a similar skill level together. Meaning, for the first time ever in Crucible's history, we finally have a chance without having to deal with the hardcore's BS. Now, with that being said, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with hardcore players. If that's something that you choose, that is entirely 100% your option, and it is perfectly fine. But low skill and average players shouldn't have to be punished for your choices. With that being said, now that we have skill-based matchmaking, we're finally leveling up in Crucible. I have reset my rank 4 or 5 times at this point. I have all of the rewards. I've completed 4 exotic quests and catalysts at this point that have a Crucible requirement. For the first time ever, I truly am loving Crucible. In 5 long years. With that being said, I think it's important that we take a look at some of the hardcore players' complaints just to make sure if they're legitimate, we give them some airtime. The first is the top 1% can't get a game or it takes forever for them to get a match. And that's 100% legitimate. Let me say that right off the bat. No question about it. Unfortunately, the top 1% means that there's only 1% of them, so there's not enough to make another lobby. Unless Bungie plans to implement bots in those lobbies, this means that the 1%ers are going to have to fix it themselves, meaning start a 1% club if they have not done so already. Create 2 different lobbies, one for EU and one that's going to cover Canada, America, Mexico, so that at any point 1% players can hop on and get a lobby. The next complaint that I hear quite a lot about is peer-to-peer. Now, I don't understand what this has to do with skill-based matchmaking. Unless I'm missing something entirely, by all means, put it down in the comment section if there's something I'm not understanding. But this seems like a bogus complaint to me. Peer-to-peer has always been a problem in Destiny, going back to Destiny 1. For years in D1, we asked Bungie to get rid of peer-to-peer. They did not. And now here we are also in D2 with peer-to-peer. The fact of the matter is, even if skill-based matchmaking was gone right now, peer-to-peer would still be an issue, regardless of skill-based matchmaking. The next 2 complaints I want to group together. The first is that these hardcore players have their KD dropping, and the second is that any match they go into, even just a basic control match, always turns into a sweat match. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, hardcore players, at some point you made the choice to be the best possible Crucible player you can be. And again, you're rewarded for that. Look at Trials, for example. You get the adept weapons, you get the armor, you get the rare shaders, ghost shells, emblems, ships, and sparrows. These are rewards that millions of the casual, low skill, or average players will never have. Now, I can hear somebody saying you can pay somebody. No, absolutely not. If I can't earn it on my own, I don't deserve it, plain and simple. So no, I'm not paying anybody or anything. The point remains that you're rewarded for being a hardcore player, and there's nothing wrong with that. Again, this is your decision. You made it, and of course your matches are going to turn into sweat match. Look at the person across from you on the different team. You're the same type of person. You both are hardcore. You both can't chill. You can't relax. You can't enjoy your Crucible matches because you're too busy being the best you possibly can be, getting the best possible KD that you can get. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but again, it's your choice. Why should low skill or average players have to suffer or put up with your complaints on this when it's your decision to do so? Furthermore, ultimately, you're just complaining about yourself. You're complaining about the way that you are. Of course your matches are going to turn into a sweat match, but that is your choice. Just like every other player there, that is their choice. You're all the same in that regard. If you have a problem with it, change it. And if you can't, then again, you're still just complaining about yourselves. That should not be a low skill or average player's responsibility to fix for you or allow you to curb stomp them. That's unacceptable, and it's a BS excuse and a BS person that would suggest it. Now, if I missed something, by all means, put it down in the comment section. If I need to make another video, I will. But I think it's important that the low skill and average players' voices be heard. And it's a voice that has been muted by hardcore players out there, content creators and streamers, who have either tried to shelter Bungie from it or just flat out didn't want to hear it. Regardless, you've heard it now. And I don't care if there's a hardcore player that wants to react to it, by all means, please do. I don't really care. I'm all for anybody and everybody listening. I think Bungie did a damn good thing here. I think they should be commended for it. Is it perfect? No, not by a long shot. My KD fluctuates, so it's inconsistent because skill-based matchmaking is inconsistent. At one moment, it puts me in lobbies with the 1.0 players, and at other points, it'll throw me in a lobby with 2.0 players, double my KD, and of course, I get curb stomped anyway. Again, I think while the flaws can be worked out, the system at its core is a good system for the majority of the players in Destiny 2 community. Again, there's nothing wrong with being hardcore, just like there's nothing wrong with being casual. I certainly am not going to go all try hard and sweat in a Crucible match because I play Crucible to have fun. And at the end of the day, that's all I want to do when I play a video game is have fun. And if that's not good enough for you, well, again, that's your problem. With that being said, this is Peace and Grease. And until next time, peace out.